June 4th, 1944, 11:23 in the morning, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean 150 miles west of the African coast. Lieutenant Thomas Morrison stands in complete darkness inside a German submarine. Water rises past his knees. The air reeks of diesel fuel and death. His flashlight beam cuts through the blackness, illuminating pipes, valves, and somewhere in this floating coffin, 13 bombs that are ticking toward a detonation. He has 3 minutes, maybe less. 3 minutes to find those bombs. 3 minutes to disarm them. 3 minutes before this submarine and everything inside it explodes and sinks 600 feet to the bottom of the Atlantic. Morrison is not thinking about the bombs right now. He is thinking about two girls back in Cleveland, Ohio. Sarah, 16, Emma, 13, his daughters. Girls who have already lost their mother to cancer. Girls who cannot afford to lose their father too. The timer on the nearest bomb reads 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The mechanical click of the countdown echoes in the cramped metal space. Tick, 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 like a heartbeat that will not stop. Morrison makes a decision. He is going to save this submarine. He is going to do something the United States Navy has not done in 129 years. He is going to capture an enemy warship at sea. This is the true story of 8 ordinary American sailors who did something extraordinary. A story the government kept secret for almost a year. A story that changed World War II in ways most Americans never knew. This is the story of the mission that captured Hitler's secrets. 10 months earlier, Morrison watched a different German submarine sink into the Atlantic. That one went down with all its secrets intact. Code books, cipher machines, torpedo guidance systems, everything the Allies desperately needed to win the war gone in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That is how long U-515 floated on the surface before she slipped beneath the waves. 10 minutes that Commander James Harrington stood on the bridge of USS Pillsbury and watched opportunity disappear into the deep. What Harrington saw that April morning would haunt him for weeks. It would lead to a decision so audacious, so impossible that his superior officers thought he had lost his mind. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how 8 American sailors ended up inside that sinking Nazi submarine, with 3 minutes to live, we need to go back. Back to a cold April morning when everything went wrong. The year is 1944. American boys are dying in places they never heard of before the war. Normandy, Iwo Jima, the Coral Sea. But the longest, deadliest battle of World War II is not being fought on any beach or island. It is being fought in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And America is losing. German U-boats are strangling Britain. Every day, Nazi wolf packs torpedo Allied merchant ships carrying food, fuel, weapons, and men. In 1943 alone, over 300 ships went to the bottom. Thousands of American, British, and Canadian sailors drowned in the freezing Atlantic waters. The Allies are hunting these submarines with everything they have: destroyer escorts, escort carriers, long-range patrol aircraft. But hunting U-boats is like trying to catch ghosts. They dive deep, run silent, surface at night to recharge their batteries, then disappear again before dawn. These are not the submarines from newsreels. The German Type 9 U-boat is a masterpiece of engineering. 250 feet long, can dive to 600 feet, has a range of 13,000 miles, enough to cross the Atlantic Patrol for weeks and return to France without refueling. And they are commanded by some of the most dangerous men in Hitler's Navy. Many of you watching this served in the Navy. Maybe you hunted U-boats yourself. Maybe you lost friends to German torpedoes. If you have memories of the Battle of the Atlantic, whether you were there or your father told you stories, share them in the comments below. This is your story too. The story of the greatest generation doing what had to be done. On the morning of April 9th, 1944, USS Pillsbury is hunting one of those ghosts. She is a small ship, only 1,200 tons, but she has a good crew and an experienced captain. Commander James Harrington has been chasing U-boats for 10 months. 0 kills, 0 captures. That is about to change. At 11:15 a.m., the call comes from the sonar room. Contact. Submarine on the surface 700 yards off starboard bow. What happens in the next 10 minutes will frustrate Harrington for the rest of his life. But it will also give him an idea so crazy it might just work. The submarine that breaks the surface that morning is U-515, commanded by Klaus Richter, one of Germany's deadliest submarine aces. 25 Allied ships sunk. Over 600 men, women, and children killed. When Richter torpedoed the British troopship Ceramic in December 1942, he sent 656 people to their deaths in the middle of the Atlantic. Only one man survived. Now Richter's boat is crippled, forced to the surface by hours of depth charge attacks. German sailors scramble onto the deck. Some try to man their guns. Others jump into the cold Atlantic hands raised in surrender. Harrington gives the order to fire. Machine guns from Pillsbury and USS Flaherty rake the submarine's conning tower. The metallic ping of bullets ricocheting off steel rings across the water. Rockets from Wildcat fighters overhead streak across the water, leaving white contrails. The smell of cordite and seawater fills the air on Pillsbury's deck. U-515's bow starts to rise. Slowly at first, then faster. Her stern sinks lower and lower into the Atlantic. Gray seawater pours over her aft deck. Oil spreads across the surface in rainbow patterns. Morrison is standing on Pillsbury's main deck. He sees something that makes his heart skip. Papers, documents, floating out of the submarine's hatches as she goes down. Official-looking papers with German typewriter text. Code books, Morrison thinks. Intelligence materials. All going down with the submarine. For just a moment, maybe 30 seconds, Morrison thinks about diving in, swimming to that submarine, climbing aboard while she is still afloat, grabbing whatever he can before she sinks. But 30 seconds is not enough time. By the time Morrison reaches the railing, U-515's conning tower has disappeared beneath the waves. 10 minutes after she surfaced, she is gone, 600 feet down, taking all her secrets with her. Morrison watches 44 German sailors get pulled from the water, including Klaus Richter himself. Richter's eyes are blank, defeated. He has lost his submarine, his crew, his war. As American sailors haul him onto Pillsbury's deck, dripping seawater and diesel fuel, Richter looks at Morrison and says something in German. Morrison does not understand the words, but years later he will learn what Richter said. You won, but you will never know what you just let sink to the bottom. Someone is watching, someone who is thinking the exact same thing Morrison has been thinking, someone with the rank and authority to do something about it. Captain Richard Caldwell stands on the bridge of USS Guadalcanal, the escort carrier leading Task Group 22.3, watching through binoculars as U-515 disappears. He has been counting. 10 minutes. The submarine floated for 10 full minutes before sinking. 10 minutes is enough time. More than enough. If they had been ready, if they had trained a boarding party in advance, if they had men prepared to jump onto that submarine and go inside, they could have captured her, taken her alive, brought back everything inside her. Codes, ciphers, technology, intelligence. Caldwell makes a decision right there on the bridge. A decision that will lead 8 men into the darkest, most dangerous mission of their lives. But first, he needs the right man to lead them. 3 days later, Commander Harrington walks down to the engine room of USS Pillsbury. It is late, nearly midnight, but he knows who he will find there. Thomas Morrison, 41 years old, assistant engineering officer, a man who has spent more time with pipes and valves than he has with people. Morrison is not like the young sailors on Pillsbury. Most of them are kids, 19, 20 years old, fresh out of training and full of fire. Morrison joined the Navy when he was 16. That was 1919, right after the First World War ended. He spent 25 years as an enlisted sailor before finally making officer rank in 1942. 25 years. Most men would have given up. But Morrison is stubborn. His wife used to joke that he was more stubborn than a rusted bolt. His wife Helen died 2 years earlier. Cancer. They caught it too late. Morrison spent 6 months watching her fade away in a Cleveland hospital, while his Navy pay barely covered the bills. When she died in October 1942, Morrison was left with 2 teenage daughters and a mountain of medical debt. Sarah is 16 now, smart as a whip, wants to go to college study to be a teacher. Emma is 13, quieter than her sister but tough. Has to be tough losing her mother so young. They live with their grandmother in Cleveland, while Morrison serves aboard Pillsbury. He sends most of his pay home, keeps just enough for cigarettes and the occasional letter. Morrison's hands are scarred from years of working on engines, burns from steam pipes, cuts from sharp metal edges, calluses so thick he can touch hot metal without flinching. These are working man's hands, hands that know how to fix things. That is what Harrington sees when he finds Morrison in the engine room that night, elbow deep in a diesel motor that has been making funny sounds. Lieutenant Morrison. Morrison looks up, wipes oil from his hands with a rag. Sir, something wrong with the ship. Something wrong with the war. Harrington pulls out a pack of Lucky Strikes, offers one to Morrison. They both light up the smoke, mixing with the smell of diesel fuel and hot metal. Captain Caldwell has an idea. He wants to capture the next U-boat we find. Not sink it. Capture it, board it, take it alive. Morrison takes a long drag on his cigarette. That is impossible, sir. Probably. German crews scuttle their boats in under 4 minutes. Open the sea valves, set demolition charges, destroy the code books. By the time anyone got aboard, she would be sinking. Probably explode too. 3 minutes. Intel says they can scuttle in 3 minutes. Then it is definitely impossible. That is why I need you, Tom. You know machinery. You know pipes and valves and how to keep things afloat. If anyone can stop a submarine from sinking, it is you. Morrison understands what Harrington is not saying. He understands why the commander came to him instead of one of the younger officers. He is 41, older, expendable. If this mission goes wrong, if Morrison does not come back, the Navy will write a letter to his daughters, pin a medal on his grave, and move on. But Morrison also understands something else, something he has been thinking about ever since Helen died. He has spent 25 years in the Navy and has nothing to show for it. No college fund for his daughters, no nest egg, just debts and a lieutenant's pay that barely covers rent. Sarah wants to go to college. Emma probably will too in a few years. How is Morrison supposed to pay for that on a lieutenant's salary? If I do this, Morrison says slowly, if I lead this boarding party and we actually pull it off, what happens to my girls if I don't come back? Harrington meets his eyes. Captain Caldwell already thought of that. He talked to Admiral King himself. If you bring back that submarine, your daughters will receive full scholarship benefits, college room board, everything. And if I die trying, death benefits, full pension, plus a hero's funeral, your girls will be taken care of, Tom. You have my word. Morrison looks down at his scarred, oil-stained hands. Hands that Helen used to hold before the cancer took her. Hands that used to tuck Sarah and Emma into bed when they were little. Can these hands save a sinking German submarine? Can they disarm bombs set by desperate Nazi sailors? Can they keep Morrison alive long enough to see his daughters graduate high school? Maybe. Maybe not. But what choice does he have? I will need 7 men. Good men. Men who will not panic when things go wrong. Because things will go wrong, sir. Harrington nods. Pick whoever you want. You have 6 weeks to train them. Pillsbury sails on May 15th. That night, after Harrington leaves, Morrison sits in his bunk and writes a letter to his daughters. He seals it in an envelope, locks it in his footlocker, and hopes they will never have to read it. The letter begins, Sarah, Emma. If you are reading this, it means I did not come home. But Morrison has no intention of letting his daughters read that letter. He is going to train harder than he has ever trained in his life. He is going to learn everything there is to know about German Type 9 submarines. He is going to pick 7 men who are just as stubborn and just as desperate as he is. And when the time comes, he is going to board that submarine and bring it home, even if it kills him. Morrison picks his team carefully. 7 men, each one chosen for a specific skill. Samuel Chen, 24, radio man, 2nd class. His parents run a laundry in San Francisco's Chinatown. Sam grew up tinkering with radios, fixing everything from ham sets to department store speakers. He can identify any German radio equipment by touch alone. The Navy needs men who can recognize Enigma cipher machines in the dark. Sam is their man. Jack Kowalski, 22, torpedo man, 3rd class. Polish kid from Pittsburgh. His father worked in the steel mills, died in an accident when Jack was 15. Jack joined the Navy to help support his mother and 3 younger sisters. He knows explosives, how to arm them, how to disarm them, and most importantly, how to keep calm when his hands are on a live bomb. Bobby Lee, 19, seaman from Alabama, the youngest of the group. His older brother died at the Battle of Coral Sea. Bobby joined up the day after he heard the news, lied about his age to get in 2 months early. He is angry, fearless, and absolutely determined to kill as many Japanese and Germans as possible. Morrison knows that anger could get Bobby killed, but it might also keep him alive when things get desperate. Robert MacDonald, everyone calls him Mac, 29, motor machinist from Glasgow, Scotland. Mack emigrated to America in 1938, joined the Navy to get citizenship. He can tear apart a diesel engine blindfolded and put it back together in under an hour. If anyone can restart a dead German submarine, it is Mack. Vincent Romano, 26 gunners mate from Brooklyn. Married. Wife is 8 months pregnant. Romano almost did not volunteer. But then he thought about his father, Anthony Romano, who fought in World War I. Anthony came home from the Argonne Forest with shrapnel in his leg and stories about what happens when good men do nothing. He taught his son that some fights are worth the risk. I want my boy to grow up in a world where we beat the Nazis, Romano tells Morrison. If boarding that submarine helps end this war one day sooner, I am in. My father would have done the same. Carlos Martinez, 31 bosun's mate from Texas. Before the war, Carlos worked as a commercial diver in the Gulf of Mexico, salvaging cargo from sunken ships. He can hold his breath for 3 minutes and stay calm in the darkest, most cramped underwater spaces. I have been in worse than a German submarine, Carlos says. Morrison does not believe him, but he appreciates the confidence. Frank O'Brien, 28 signalman from Boston. O'Brien's grandmother was German, emigrated to Boston in 1920. He grew up speaking both English and German at home. He can read German technical manuals, understand German commands, and most importantly, communicate with any German sailors they might find aboard. O'Brien is their translator, their bridge between American intent and German engineering. For 6 weeks, Morrison drills these 7 men relentlessly. Every morning at 5 a.m., they assemble on Pillsbury's fantail. Morrison has built a wooden mock-up of a German U-boat conning tower and deck. In the pre-dawn darkness with cold Atlantic spray soaking their clothes, the men practice climbing from a moving whaleboat onto that slippery wooden deck. They fall. They get back up. They fall again. By the end of week 1, every man has bruises and cuts. By the end of week 2, they can do it in their sleep. Morrison acquires blueprints of Type 9 submarines from Naval Intelligence. The 8 men memorize every compartment, every valve, every hatch. 11 compartments total. Torpedo room forward, officers' quarters, control room, radio room, galley, diesel engine room, electric motor room, torpedo room aft. They learn the German words for each. They study photographs of Enigma cipher machines until they can identify one with their eyes closed. 3 rotors, plug board, keyboard. The rotors have different wirings, and the Germans change them every few days. Even if the boarding party cannot crack the code, just having an intact machine with its current rotors will be worth thousands of Allied lives. Then comes the hard part, learning to disarm German demolition charges. Jack Kowalski leads these sessions. He has studied captured German sabotage equipment and has a good idea of what they will face. Standard German scuttle protocol calls for charges placed throughout the submarine, in the engine room near the torpedo storage in the battery compartments and in the bilge spaces. Each charge has a timer, usually set for 5 minutes, and a manual backup detonator in case the timer fails. Morrison and his team practice on dummy charges. They learn to identify the timer mechanism by touch in complete darkness. They learn to trace detonator wires to their source. They learn which wires to cut and which to leave alone. One afternoon, Kowalski sets up a surprise test. He places a real detonator, disabled but realistic, inside one of the dummy charges and does not tell anyone. Morrison finds it first. His hands are shaking as he traces the wires, feeling the weight of the real mechanism, knowing that in a real situation, cutting the wrong wire means instant death. He cuts the blue wire. Nothing happens. Correct choice. Morrison looks at Kowalski. Don't ever do that again. Kowalski grins. You will thank me when you are in that submarine, sir. The nights are hard. While the young sailors play cards or write letters home, Morrison sits alone in his cabin, studying German technical manuals by lantern light. His eyes hurt. His head hurts. He smokes too many cigarettes and drinks too much coffee. Sometimes he takes out the photograph he carries in his wallet. Helen, Sarah, and Emma taken at a carnival in Cleveland in 1940. Before the cancer. Before everything went to hell. Helen is laughing at something Sarah said. Emma is eating cotton candy, getting sugar all over her face. Morrison stares at that photo and thinks, I am doing this for you. All of you. On May 14th, 1944, the day before Pillsbury sails, Captain Caldwell assembles Morrison's team in Guadalcanal's wardroom. The 8 men stand at attention while Caldwell gives them their final briefing. Beside him stands Commander Henry Watkins, the carrier's chief engineer. Watkins is 40 years old, a former merchant marine engineer who knows more about keeping ships afloat than any man in the Atlantic Fleet. Gentleman, Caldwell says, what you are about to attempt has never been done. Not by us, not by anyone. The last time the United States Navy boarded and captured an enemy vessel was during the War of 1812. That was 132 years ago. You will enter a foreign submarine that is sinking and rigged with explosives. You will have no backup, no second chances. If you fail, you die. If you succeed, you might still die. But if you succeed, you could save thousands of Allied lives. Caldwell pauses, looks at each man. I cannot order you to do this. This is voluntary. If any man wants to walk away right now, no one will think less of him. Nobody moves. Commander Watkins will be standing by with a salvage team. Caldwell continues, if you can keep that submarine afloat long enough for him to board, he will do everything possible to save her. But the first 3 minutes are on you. You have to stop the scuttling. You have to disarm those bombs. Because if you don't, there will be nothing left for Commander Watkins to save. Watkins nods at Morrison. Lieutenant, I have spent 20 years keeping ships from sinking. If you can buy me time, I will keep that U-boat afloat all the way to Bermuda. You have my word. Morrison meets his eyes. We will get you that time, sir. Caldwell's voice drops lower. Then God be with you, gentlemen, and God bless America. The next morning, USS Pillsbury sails from Norfolk with Task Group 22.3. Destination, the hunting grounds off West Africa where German U-boats prowl the shipping lanes. Morrison's team is ready as 8 men can be for the impossible. But ready or not, their moment is coming. And when it comes, it will happen so fast that all their training, all their preparation will compress into 3 minutes of pure chaos. Because on June 4th, 1944, exactly 2 days before D-Day, a German Type 9 U-boat is going to surface right in front of them. And 8 American sailors are going to do something the world has never seen. 3 weeks. That is how long Morrison and his team wait. 3 weeks of nothing but empty ocean, false contacts, and mounting tension. Life aboard USS Pillsbury during wartime patrol is a strange mix of boredom and terror. Hours, sometimes days of seeing nothing but gray water and gray sky. The smell of diesel fuel mixed with salt air. The constant vibration of engines through the deck plates. Meals of powdered eggs and canned beef. The sound of metal groaning as the ship rides through Atlantic swells. And then without warning action. A sonar contact. General quarters. Men running to battle stations. Depth charges rolling off the stern. The ship shuddering from explosions. Oil bubbling to the surface. Then nothing. The submarine gone escaped or maybe killed. No way to know for sure. Morrison keeps his team sharp. Every day they rehearse. Climbing the mock-up deck. Memorizing the German submarine layout. Running through disarmament procedures. But you can see the strain building. Bobby Lee starts having nightmares. He wakes up shouting in German words he learned during training, words about flooding and bombs. The kid is 19 and trying very hard to pretend he is not scared. Romano gets a letter from home on May 28th. His wife has given birth. A boy, Vincent Jr., 8 pounds healthy. Romano reads that letter 3 times, then folds it carefully and tucks it in his shirt pocket right over his heart. He does not say anything, but Morrison sees his hands shaking. Carlos Martinez gets quieter. The normally talkative Texan barely speaks during meals. He is thinking about his family's ranch outside San Antonio, wondering if he will ever see it again. While Morrison's team waits, the war is reaching a critical point. Allied forces are massed in England, preparing for the largest amphibious invasion in history, D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. Every German U-boat in the Atlantic has orders to find and destroy the invasion fleet, and German U-boats are still using their Enigma codes. Still transmitting orders, positions, patrol zones, all encrypted with ciphers the Allies cannot fully read. If Morrison's team can capture an intact Enigma machine and fresh codebooks, Allied codebreakers might be able to read those transmissions. Might be able to warn the invasion fleet where German submarines are hunting. The stakes are enormous. Bigger than Morrison knows. Bigger than anyone on Pillsbury knows except Captain Caldwell. By early June, Task Group 22.3 is running low on fuel. Caldwell orders a course change toward Casablanca to refuel. The patrol seems finished. Morrison's team will have to wait for the next voyage. Then at 11:09 a.m. on June 4th, 1944, everything changes. The sonar operator aboard USS Chatelaine, another destroyer escort in the task group, picks up a contact. Bearing 045 range 800 yards. A submarine is running submerged, heading straight toward the carrier Guadalcanal. Within seconds, every ship in the task group goes to battle stations. Morrison and his 7-man boarding team have been waiting in Pillsbury's whaleboat, ready for instant deployment. Now Morrison hears Harrington's voice over the speaker system. Boarding party stand by. This is it. This is what we trained for. Morrison's heart hammers in his chest. His mouth goes dry. His hands, those scarred, steady hands, are shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. From knowing that in a few minutes he will either be dead or he will be making history. He looks at his 7 men, Chen adjusting his tool bag, Kowalski checking his wire cutters, Bobby Lee gripping his flashlight like it is a weapon, Mac Romano Martinez, O'Brien, all of them, silent focus, terrified. Listen to me, Morrison says quietly. You all know what to do. We have rehearsed this 100 times. The only difference is, this time it is real. Stay calm, work fast, trust your training. And remember, we are Americans. We finish what we start. Now let's go catch ourselves a submarine. Chatelaine releases her first pattern of depth charges at 11:16. The ocean erupts. White columns of water shoot 200 feet into the air. The concussion is so powerful Morrison can feel it in his chest aboard Pillsbury nearly a mile away. Then comes the oil slick, dark rainbow-sheened oil bubbling to the surface. Blood in the water. The submarine is hit. 6.5 minutes after the attack, 11:22, the German U-boat breaks the surface. She comes up bow first like a breaching whale, gray metal streaming with seawater. Her conning tower scarred with rust and depth charge damage. The German naval ensign black swastika on white and red still flying from her periscope. But something is wrong. The submarine is not stopping. She is moving, circling to starboard at 5 or 6 knots. Her rudder is jammed from the depth charge damage. She cannot dive. She cannot steer. She can only spiral in a slow, deadly circle. German sailors scramble through the hatches onto the deck. Some try to reach their deck guns, the 37mm anti-aircraft cannon, the 20mm machine guns. They never make it. Chatelaine and the other destroyer escorts open fire with everything that will bear. 50 caliber machine gun rounds spark off the conning tower. A German sailor falls, blood spreading across his blue uniform. The others throw up their hands and begin jumping into the Atlantic. 2 Wildcat fighters from Guadalcanal dive low over the submarine, strafing the deck with their 50 caliber guns. Spent brass casings rain into the ocean. The German sailors in the water start waving white undershirts, screaming, "Nick Schiessen, Nick Schiessen, don't shoot." Morrison watches from the whaleboat. Pillsbury has already lowered them into the water. Carlos Martinez is at the tiller, keeping them steady in the swells. The whaleboat rises and falls with the waves. Up, down, up, down. That German submarine continues its death spiral 700 yards away. She is not stopping, Bobby Lee shouts. How do we board her if she won't stop? Morrison makes a split-second calculation. The submarine is circling to starboard, about 100 yards in diameter. If Martinez can cut inside that circle, intercept the submarine's path, full throttle, Morrison orders, cut inside her arc. We are going to meet her head-on. Martinez guns the whaleboat's engine. They shoot forward, bouncing over waves, spray soaking everyone aboard. The German submarine grows larger with each second. Morrison can see the details now. The chipped gray paint, the dents from depth charges, the bullet holes in the conning tower. Oil slicks the water around them. The smell hits Morrison like a punch. Diesel fuel thick and nauseating. German sailors thrash in the oily water, shouting for help in German and broken English. Morrison forces himself to ignore them. His mission is the submarine. Only the submarine, 50 yards, 40, 30. The gray hull looms ahead like a steel island. Morrison can see she is riding low in the water, already taking on seawater from internal damage. Her stern is lower than her bow. She is sinking even as she circles, 20 yards. 10, alongside Morrison shouts. Martinez brings the whaleboat in parallel to the submarine's hull. The two vessels are moving together now, 5 knots, the whaleboat scraping against the submarine's side with a grinding screech of wood on steel. Morrison does not think. He grabs the submarine's deck railing, slippery with seawater and oil, and hauls himself up. His boots slip on the metal deck. He catches himself, scrambles forward, and reaches back to help Chen up behind him. One by one, the 7 men climb aboard. Kowalski, Bobby Lee, Mac, Romano, Martinez, O'Brien. All of them dripping seawater, hearts pounding, standing on the deck of an enemy submarine that is actively sinking beneath their feet. A dead German sailor lies face down near the conning tower, blood pooling around his body. Morrison recognizes the rank insignia. Obermaschinist, senior machinist. The man probably came up to try to seal a valve or close a hatch. American machine gun fire cut him down. Morrison feels nothing. No pity, no guilt. Just a cold professional assessment. One less German to deal with. 30 seconds, Morrison shouts. Grab whatever tools you need. We are going in. The conning tower hatch is open, water dripping from the lip. Below, Morrison can see red emergency lighting. The interior of the submarine. Every man knows what is down there. Darkness. Flooding. Bombs set to explode at any moment. Possibly more German sailors armed and desperate. Morrison looks at his team one last time. 7 faces, all thinking the same thing. This is insane. We are going to die down there. But none of them turn back. Morrison swings his legs over the hatch, combing, and drops into the darkness. The rest follow. And the moment Morrison's boots hit the control room deck, he knows they have 3 minutes, maybe less, to save the submarine or die trying. The first thing that hits Morrison is the smell. Diesel fuel, sweat, something rotting in the galley, mold, human waste from the heads, all mixed together in the humid, stale air of the submarine. The second thing is the sound. Water, rushing water, not just dripping, rushing. Somewhere aft, seawater is pouring into the submarine through cracked pipes and damaged valves. The third thing is the darkness. The Germans have cut the main power before abandoning ship. Only emergency lights are working. Dim red bulbs every 20 feet. Shadows everywhere. Corners you cannot see into. Hatches leading to compartments that might be flooded, might be empty, might contain a German sailor with a pistol. Morrison pulls out his flashlight. The beam cuts through the darkness, illuminating a nightmare. The control room is a mess. The deck is tilted 15 degrees to starboard, making it hard to keep your balance. Water sloshes around their ankles, cold Atlantic seawater, already 6 inches deep and rising. Broken glass from shattered gauges crunches under their boots. Electrical panels spark where seawater has gotten into the wiring. But what catches Morrison's attention is the control panel itself. Dozens of valves, switches, levers, all labeled in German. This is the heart of the submarine. This is where you control the dive planes, the ballast tanks, the trim. And somewhere in this chaos is the key to keeping this boat afloat. Chen O'Brien radio room and captain's quarters. Find the Enigma machines and code books. Don't come out until you have them. Mac Kowalski engine room, find in the main sea valve and close it. That is where the flooding is coming from. Martinez Romano torpedo rooms, forward and aft. Look for demolition charges. Shout if you find any. Bobby Lee, you are with me. We are finding those bombs. Bobby Lee's face is pale in the red emergency lighting. The kid is scared. Morrison can see it in his eyes. Sir Bobby Lee says quietly, if there are 13 bombs and it takes 2 minutes to disarm each one, we don't have enough time. Morrison puts a hand on Bobby Lee's shoulder. Then we better work fast, sailor. Let's move. Chen and O'Brien splash through knee-deep water toward the radio room. The hatch is partially flooded, but they force it open. Inside, chaos. Papers everywhere floating in the water. Smashed equipment. But there on a shelf above the waterline, 2 waterproof cases. Chen grabs one, opens it. Inside, still dry, is an Enigma cipher machine. 3 rotors, pristine condition. Got one, Chen shouts. O'Brien grabs the second case, also an Enigma, plus a folder labeled Schlüsseltafeln. Key tables, the code settings. 2 machines, O'Brien yells. We got them. Mac and Kowalski crash through the engine room hatch and into hell. The aft section of the submarine is flooding fast. Water pours from a cracked pipe near the diesel engines. Not a spray, not a leak, a torrent. The 2 men are chest deep in seawater within seconds. Their Mac points. The main sea strainer valve, a wheel the size of a dinner plate, But the Germans have opened it all the way and removed the handle. The valve is stuck open and seawater is pouring in through the opening. Kowalski dives underwater, feeling blindly for the valve stem. His hands find it, a square shaft. He needs a wrench, or a pipe, or something, anything to turn that valve. Mac is already ahead of him. He has grabbed a heavy wrench from a toolbox, bolted to the bulkhead. He hands it to Kowalski underwater. Kowalski fits the wrench to the valve stem and pushes with all his strength. The valve does not move. Rust. Corrosion. 20 months at sea have seized the valve threads. "Help me," Kowalski shouts. Mac joins him. Both men underwater now, bracing against the bulkhead, pushing the wrench with combined strength. Their lungs burn. Their muscles scream. The valve will not turn. Then suddenly it gives. Just a quarter turn. Then another. The flood of seawater slows from a torrent to a stream. Another turn. Another. Finally, the valve closes completely. Both men surface gasping. Flooding contained, Max shouts toward the control room. "She is not sinking. Not yet." Carlos Martinez finds the first bomb in the forward torpedo room. It is exactly where intelligence said it would be. Mounted on the pressure hull between two torpedo tubes about the size of a shoebox with a mechanical timer ticking away. Martinez stares at the timer. The dial is in German, but he can read the numbers. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. "Bomb," Martinez screams. Forward torpedo room. Timer running. Morrison and Bobby Lee run forward, slipping on the wet deck, crashing into bulkheads in their haste. Morrison skids into the torpedo room and sees the bomb. Morrison has trained for this. He knows the procedure. Look for the detonator, trace the wires, cut the right one. But training has not prepared him for the reality. The bomb is mounted in a cramped space between torpedo tubes, barely enough room to get his hands around it. Water drips on his head from a leaking pipe above. The timer is so loud in the silence. Tick, 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 like a heartbeat. Morrison traces the wires with his flashlight. 2 wires, red and blue, leading from the timer to the detonator. Kowalski taught him. Red for port side, blue for starboard. Always cut the wire on the opposite side from where you are working. Morrison is working from the starboard side. Cut red. His hands shake. Not from fear, from adrenaline. From knowing that if he cuts wrong, the explosion will kill everyone in the forward section. Kill him. Kill Martinez. Maybe kill the whole team. Morrison thinks of Sarah and Emma, thinks of the letter in his footlocker, thinks of his promise to himself that they will never have to read it. He cuts the red wire. The timer stops. Bomb 1 disarmed. Morrison allows himself exactly 2 seconds of relief. Then 12 more to go. Move, move, move. While Morrison is disarming bombs, Vincent Romano is searching the crew quarters. This is where the submarine's enlisted men slept. 40 bunks crammed into a space the size of a living room. Hot bunking, the Navy calls it. Men sleeping in shifts, sharing the same bunks. The smell in here is even worse than the rest of the submarine. Unwashed bodies, dirty laundry, cigarette smoke soaked into the fabric. Romano sweeps his flashlight beam across the compartment. Empty bunks, scattered personal belongings. A photograph of a German girl taped to a bulkhead. A harmonica on a shelf. These are somebody's lives, Romano thinks. Kids, probably. Just like the American sailors aboard Pillsbury. Then Romano hears something. A groan. Faint. Human. Romano moves toward the sound hand on his sidearm. Behind a pile of wet blankets in the corner, he finds a German sailor. Young, maybe 20 years old. Blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin, wounded, bad. Blood soaked through his gray submarine uniform from a wound in his side. Shrapnel from a depth charge, Romano guesses. The kid must have been down here when the submarine was hit, too wounded to make it topside with the others. And he is holding a Walther P-38 pistol. Pointed at Romano, Romano freezes. The German sailor's hand is shaking, but his finger is on the trigger. "Nicht näher kommen," the German shouts. "Ich schieße." Romano does not understand the words, but he understands the intent. "Don't come closer. I will shoot." "O'Brien," Romano yells. "Need a translator." "Now!" Frank O'Brien comes running, splashing through the water. He takes one look at the situation. Wounded German gun standoff. He raises both hands in a calming gesture. "Wir wollen dir helfen," O'Brien says in German. Wir sind keine Feinde. We want to help you. We are not enemies. The German sailor laughs. A bitter, pained laugh. Lügner. Amerikaner sind Feinde. Liar. Americans are enemies. O'Brien switches to English, translating for Romano and the others. He says his name is Dieter Vogel. He is from Hamburg. He says we are going to kill him. We are not going to kill him, Romano says. Tell him that. Tell him we will get him to a doctor. O'Brien translates. Dieter shakes his head, wincing from pain. He says something long in German. He says O'Brien pauses processing. He says there are 13 bombs throughout the submarine. He is the one who set them. He and 2 other sailors. Orders from the captain. Scuttle the boat before the Americans could board. But his crewmates abandoned him down here when he got wounded. He has been lying here bleeding, waiting for the bombs to explode and kill him. Ask him where the bombs are, Morrison says. He has arrived, drawn by the commotion. All 13. Exact locations. O'Brien translates. Dieter shakes his head. Warum sollte ich euch helfen, he says. Why should I help you? Morrison steps forward slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. He is calculating. This German kid is going to bleed out in 20 minutes if he does not get medical attention. The submarine is going to explode, and how long Morrison does not know. Could be minutes. But Morrison also sees something in Dieter's eyes. Not hatred, not fanaticism, just fear. Fear and pain and the realization that he has been abandoned by his own crew. Morrison makes a decision. O'Brien Morrison says quietly, tell him this. Tell him I have 2 daughters back home in America, Sarah and Emma, 16 and 13. I joined in this mission because I want them to grow up in a world where this war is over, where German kids and American kids don't have to kill each other anymore. O'Brien translates. Morrison continues. Tell him his parents probably think he is dead right now. But if we save this submarine, if we can keep it afloat long enough to get everyone to safety, he gets to go home. He gets to see his family again. He gets to live. O'Brien translates Morrison's words into German. Dieter listens, tears streaming down his face. When O'Brien finishes, Dieter is silent for a long moment. Then he says something soft in German. O'Brien translates. He says his mother lives in Hamburg. She is alone. His father died in 1940 in France. Dieter is her only son. He says he doesn't want to die without saying goodbye to her. Morrison kneels down in the water, putting himself at eye level with Dieter. Then help us, son. Tell us where the bombs are. Let us save this submarine. And I give you my word as an American officer, that we will get you to a doctor. You will survive this war. You will see your mother again. Dieter stares at Morrison for what feels like forever. Then slowly he lowers the pistol. 13 Bomben, he says weakly. 13 bombs. O'Brien grabs a pencil and paper from his pocket, where he asks in German. Wo Dieter tells them. All 13 locations. 4 in the engine room. 3 in the aft torpedo room. 2 in the battery compartments. 3 in various bilge spaces. 1 in the control room, hidden under the deck plates. O'Brien sketches a quick map as Dieter talks. When he finishes, Morrison has everything he needs. Romano Martinez, get this kid to the deck. Signal Guadalcanal for a medical team. Tell them we have a wounded German prisoner who just saved all our lives. As Martinez lifts Dieter out of the water, the German sailor grabs O'Brien's arm and says something urgent. O'Brien's face goes white. Sir, he says the timers were set for 5 minutes. But that was at 11:16 when the captain gave the scuttle order. It is now. O'Brien checks his watch, 11:26. 10 minutes ago. Morrison feels his stomach drop. 10 minutes, then. Why haven't they exploded? O'Brien asks Dieter. The German responds weakly. He says the timers are mechanical, not electronic. Humidity in the submarine often makes them run slow. Sometimes they take 7 or 8 minutes instead of 5. He says we have. O'Brien pauses, doing the math, maybe 2 minutes, maybe less. Morrison grabs the map from O'Brien's hand and runs back toward the control room, shouting at the top of his lungs. 12 bombs still armed. We have 2 minutes. Everyone to your stations. Move, move, move. 2 minutes, maybe less. 12 bombs, 8 men. The math is simple and terrifying. Morrison splits the team instantly. No time for discussion, no time for second guessing. Mac Kowalski engine room. 4 bombs, you know where. Chen Bobby Lee, aft torpedo room. 3 bombs. Romano Martinez battery compartments. 2 bombs, O'Brien with me. Control room and bilge spaces, 4 bombs. Mac finds the first bomb mounted near the diesel engines. Timer 1 minute 47 seconds. Less than 2 minutes. Standard procedure. Trace wires. Cut blue. Timer stopped. Bomb 2 disarmed. Bomb 3 is harder. Mounted underneath the engine, barely accessible. Kowalski has to crawl into a space so tight he cannot turn around. His flashlight beam illuminates the timer. 1 minute 28 seconds. Jack, cut the wire, Mac urges. Now. Kowalski's hands are underwater, working by feel. Red wire or blue, he cannot see. Has to guess. Trust training, trust instinct. He cuts. Timer stopped. Bomb 3 disarmed. Bombs 4 and 5 are together, mounted on opposite sides of the engine room. Mac takes one, Kowalski takes the other. Both working simultaneously. 1 minute 15 seconds remaining. Cut. Cut. Both timers stopped. Bombs 4 and 5 disarmed. Engine room clear, Mac shouts. Chen finds bomb 6 immediately. Timer 1 minute 33 seconds. He does not hesitate. Red wire. Cut. Stopped. Bobby Lee locates bomb 7 inside a torpedo tube. He has to crawl halfway into the tube to reach it. The metal tube presses against him from all sides. Claustrophobia claws at his brain. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely hold the wire cutters. 1 minute 18 seconds. Come on, Bobby Chen says from outside the tube. You can do this. Just like training. Bobby Lee takes a deep breath. Blue wire. He cuts it. Timer stopped. Bomb 8 is the worst. It is mounted above the torpedo tubes near the torpedoes themselves. If it explodes, it will detonate the torpedo warheads. The entire aft section of the submarine will explode. Chen climbs on top of the tubes, water dripping on him from above. Timer 1 minute 5 seconds. His hands are steady. Years of working on delicate radio equipment have taught him precision. Red wire. Cut. Timer stopped. Bombs 6, 7, and 8 disarmed. AFT room clear. Bobby Lee yells. The battery compartments are directly below the control room. Access is through a hatch in the deck. Romano drops down, first landing in water that comes up to his chest. The batteries are huge, each one the size of a refrigerator, and they are submerged. Seawater and battery acid are mixing, creating a toxic gas that burns Romano's eyes and throat. He finds bomb 9 mounted on top of one battery. Timer 1 minute 12 seconds. But there is a problem. The bomb is resting directly on the battery casing. If Romano cuts the wrong wire and the bomb explodes, it will rupture the battery, releasing hydrogen gas. The resulting explosion will blow the entire midsection of the submarine apart. Madonna Mia, Romano whispers. He traces the wires carefully. Blue wire is primary, red is backup. Cut blue first, then red. He cuts blue. Timer still running. 58 seconds. He cuts red. Timer stopped. Bomb 9 disarmed. Martinez finds bomb 10 in the second battery compartment. Same setup, same danger. Timer 52 seconds. Martinez is a veteran salvage diver. He has worked in conditions worse than this. Deeper, darker, more dangerous. But he has never had 50 seconds to disarm a bomb before. Blue first, cut. Red second, cut. Timer stopped. Bomb 10 disarmed. Batteries clear. Romano shouts. This is where it gets complicated. 3 bombs left. Bomb 11 is hidden in a bilge space, a narrow crawlway beneath the control room deck. Morrison has to remove a deck plate squeeze through an opening barely 18 inches wide and crawl through oily bilge water in pitch darkness. His flashlight reveals the bomb. Timer 1 minute 3 seconds. Morrison's hands find the wires. But these wires are different. 4 wires instead of 2. Red, blue, yellow, black. Morrison has never seen this configuration before. Neither has Kowalski. This is something new. 54 seconds. Morrison thinks fast. German engineering is logical, methodical. Primary detonator would be power source. Power comes through which wire black is ground. Always. Every electrical system in the world uses black for ground. If Morrison cuts black first, it will disconnect the entire circuit. But what if German systems are different? What if black is something else? 45 seconds. No time to think. Has to guess. Trust logic. Trust training. Morrison cuts black. Timer keeps running. 40 seconds. Blue wire. Cut. Timer keeps running. 33 seconds. Morrison is sweating despite the cold water. His hands are shaking. 33 seconds. 2 wires left, red and yellow. One is the detonator. One is something else. A secondary trigger. Morrison thinks about his daughters, about Helen, about the letter in his footlocker, about dying down here in the bilge of a German submarine drowned in oily water with a bomb clutched in his hands. 27 seconds. He cuts red and yellow simultaneously. The timer stops. Bomb 11 disarmed. Morrison crawls out of the bilge, gasping. 2 more, he shouts to O'Brien. Where is 12? O'Brien is already on it. He has found bomb 12 in another bilge space on the opposite side of the control room. Timer 41 seconds. Standard configuration. 2 wires. O'Brien cuts blue. Timer stopped. Bomb 12 disarmed. 1 more, Morrison yells. Where's 13? According to Dieter's map, bomb 13 is in the deepest bilge space, all the way forward beneath the officers' quarters. Morrison runs forward, slipping on the wet deck, nearly falling twice. He finds the access hatch. It is underwater, completely submerged. Morrison takes 3 deep breaths, hyperventilating, to load his blood with oxygen. Then he dives. The water is black, cold. His flashlight beam cuts through the murk. He pulls himself down into the bilge space, hands finding pipes and cables to guide him. His lungs already burning, his ears popping from pressure. There, the bomb, mounted on a structural beam. Timer visible, 23 seconds. Morrison's hands find the wires. 2 wires. Standard, but underwater. He has to cut them underwater by feel with his lungs screaming for air. 18 seconds. Cut blue. The wire is harder to cut underwater. Water resistance makes the cutters sluggish. 14 seconds. The wire snaps. Timer still running. 11 seconds. Morrison's vision is starting to gray at the edges. Hypoxia. He needs air, needs to surface. But if he surfaces now, the bomb will explode and kill everyone. 8 seconds. Red wire. He positions the cutters. Squeezes. 6 seconds. The cutters slip. His numb, cold hands cannot grip properly. 5 seconds. He repositions, squeezes harder. The wire resists. 4 seconds. Come on. Come on. 3 seconds. The wire snaps. The timer stops. 2 seconds. Morrison kicks upward, breaking the surface. Gasping, coughing, his lungs on fire. He sucks in air, precious air, his head spinning, his heart hammering. Clear, he screams. All 13 bombs disarmed. This submarine is ours. For 10 seconds, Morrison and his team feel something they have not felt in half an hour. Relief. They did it. 13 bombs disarmed. The submarine is not sinking anymore. Mac closed the main flood valve. The Enigma machines are secure. The mission is a success. Then they hear the crash. Above them on the surface, U-505 is still circling uncontrollably. Her jammed rudder means she cannot steer, only spiral in a slow, deadly loop. And in one of those loops, she swings directly toward USS Pillsbury. Commander Harrington on Pillsbury's bridge sees it coming, orders emergency maneuvers. But destroyer escorts are not nimble. Pillsbury turns, but not fast enough. The submarine's hull scrapes along Pillsbury's side. Metal shrieks against metal. And caught between them, crushed like an aluminum can, is Morrison's whaleboat. The boat that was supposed to carry them back to Pillsbury. The whaleboat shatters. Wood planks explode. The small boat's engine tears free and sinks. Within seconds, there is nothing left but floating debris. Worse, the collision breaches 3 of Pillsbury's compartments. Seawater pours through the damaged hull. Damage control teams scramble to seal the flooding. Morrison and his team are trapped. 8 Americans inside a captured German submarine with no way off. What now? Sir Bobby Lee asks. The kid's face is pale. They survived the bombs, survived the flooding, but now they are stuck inside a foreign warship that could sink at any moment. Morrison makes a decision. We do what we came here to do. We keep this submarine afloat until help arrives. Help is already coming. Captain Caldwell, watching from Guadalcanal, has seen the whaleboat destroyed. He immediately dispatches Commander Henry Watkins, the carrier's chief engineer, with a second boarding party. Watkins, 40 years old, was a merchant marine engineer before the war. He knows more about ship systems than any man in the Atlantic Fleet. If anyone can save U-505, It is him. Watkins arrives 15 minutes later with 6 men and a boatload of tools, pumps, welding equipment, spare hoses, patch materials. He climbs through the conning tower hatch and finds Morrison's team still working in the flooded compartments. Lieutenant Morrison. That is me, sir. Watkins looks around at the chaos, the flooded control room, the damaged equipment, the German sailor's body being carried up to the deck by Romano and Martinez. Hell of a job you did here, son. Now let's keep her from sinking. For the next 4 hours, Morrison and Watkins's combined teams work to save U-505. It is brutal, exhausting work. Problem 1, flooding continues. Even with the main sea valve closed, water seeps in through dozens of smaller leaks. Cracked pipes, damaged seals. Depth charge impacts have stressed the pressure hull in ways the Germans never designed for. Watkins traces every pipe, every valve, every joint. His hands, like Morrison's, are scarred from years of engineering work. He can identify a faulty seal by touch, diagnose a cracked pipe by the sound of water flowing through it. They use everything they have. German wrenches from the submarine's own toolkit, spare gaskets cut from rubber mats, wooden wedges jammed into cracks. At one point, Watkins rips off his own undershirt and stuffs it into a leaking valve joint to create a makeshift seal. Problem 2, power systems failing. The submarine's batteries are nearly dead. Emergency lighting starts to flicker and die. Working in complete darkness is impossible. Mac jury rigs a solution. He connects the submarine's backup battery system meant for emergency surfacing to the lighting circuits. It is not elegant, but it works. The lights come back on. Problem 3, buoyancy imbalance. U-505's stern is riding dangerously low. If she continues settling by the stern, she will eventually flip vertical and slide backward into the Atlantic. Watkins and Morrison work together to solve this. They pump water from the aft compartments and flood the forward ballast tanks to shift the weight distribution. Slowly, painfully, the submarine levels out. By 3 p.m., 4 hours after boarding, U-505 is stable, not safe, not seaworthy, but stable. Morrison sits on the control room deck, exhausted, drenched in sweat and seawater, hands bleeding from cuts and abrasions. Watkins sits beside him, equally exhausted. "You did good," Lieutenant Watkins says. "We all did, sir," Morrison replies. "Couldn't have done it without the team." Watkins nods. "You know what strikes me? The Germans built this submarine to kill Americans. They filled it with bombs to deny us any intelligence. They abandoned their own wounded sailor and left him to die down here. But we saved it. We saved him. Because that is what Americans do. We don't give up. We don't leave people behind. We finish the job." Morrison thinks about Dieter Vogel, the German sailor they rescued. Thinks about the promise he made that Dieter would see his mother again. Thinks about how a year ago Morrison would have killed that German kid without hesitation. But down here in the darkness, bleeding and scared, Dieter was just another kid who wanted to go home. "Yeah," Morrison says softly. "That is what Americans do." What Morrison does not know, what none of the men aboard U-505 know, is that this capture is about to become the most closely guarded secret of World War II. Because 2 days from now, on June 6, 1944, Allied forces will storm the beaches of Normandy. And the Enigma machines Morrison's team captured will be the key to protecting that invasion fleet from German U-boats. If the Germans learn that U-505 has been captured, if they know their codes are compromised, they will change everything. And thousands of American boys landing on those beaches might die because of it. The mission is only half over. Now comes the hard part, keeping the secret. On the afternoon of June 4, 1944, USS Guadalcanal begins the long journey home. Destination Bermuda. Distance 2,500 miles across the open Atlantic. Trailing behind the carrier, connected by a steel tow cable thick as a man's arm, is U-505. Captured, damaged, barely afloat, but alive. It is an extraordinary sight. An American escort carrier towing a German submarine across enemy waters, like a hunter dragging home a wounded bear. Except this bear contains secrets that could change the war. The 2 Enigma machines are already aboard Guadalcanal, locked in Captain Caldwell's safe. 800 pounds of classified German documents are being cataloged by intelligence officers. Code books patrol orders charts showing U-boat positions across the Atlantic. And in sickbay, Dieter Vogel is recovering from surgery to remove shrapnel from his side. Morrison and his team are back aboard Pillsbury, getting medical attention for cuts, bruises, and exhaustion. But Morrison cannot rest. Not yet. That evening, Commander Harrington calls Morrison to his cabin. "Sit down, Tom." Morrison sits, his whole body aching. Harrington pours 2 glasses of whiskey, technically against regulations, but nobody cares after what they just did. "What I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level. 2 days from now, Allied forces are going to invade France. Normandy, the largest amphibious invasion in human history. 150,000 American, British, and Canadian troops hitting 5 beaches simultaneously." Morrison takes a sip of whiskey. "And the Germans don't know, oh, they know something is coming. They just don't know where or when. And German U-boats have orders to sink anything headed toward the French coast. If those U-boats find our invasion fleet before D-Day, it would be a slaughter. The Enigma machines you captured can read German U-boat communications, their positions, their orders, everything. Allied codebreakers at Bletchley Park in England can use those machines and codebooks to decrypt messages and warn our convoys where the U-boats are hunting." Morrison understands. "But only if the Germans don't know we have them." Exactly. "If Admiral Donitz, the German U-boat commander, finds out that U-505 was captured, he will change all the codes immediately. Every Enigma setting, every cipher protocol. We will be blind again. And American boys landing on those beaches will die because we couldn't warn them about submarines." Morrison feels the weight of it settle on his shoulders. His team has captured something incredible. But now that capture creates its own danger. One wrong word, one leaked communication, and the entire mission will be worthless. Worse than worthless. It could cost thousands of Allied lives. So what do? We keep our mouths shut. All of us. Every man who saw that submarine get captured. Nobody talks. Nobody writes letters home describing what happened. This mission never happened. U-505 is missing, presumed sunk. And it stays that way until the war is over. Now, some of you watching this remember D-Day. Maybe you were there. Maybe you knew someone who landed on Omaha Beach or Utah Beach, June 6, 1944, one of the most important days in American history. What you might not have known is that 2 days before D-Day 8, American sailors captured a German submarine and kept it secret. And that secret helped protect the invasion fleet. If you have D-Day stories, if you or someone in your family was there, please share them in the comments. This is our shared history, the history of the greatest generation. The journey to Bermuda takes 15 days, 15 days of constant vigilance. The tow cable breaks twice in heavy weather and has to be reattached. Storms threaten to swamp the low-riding submarine. Salvage crews remain aboard U-505 around the clock, pumping water, monitoring leaks, keeping her afloat. Morrison volunteers for every shift aboard the submarine. He cannot explain why. Maybe it is pride. He saved this boat and he wants to see her safely home. Maybe it is responsibility. His team started this job and Americans finish what they start. Or maybe it is something else. Maybe it is because down in that submarine's control room in the darkness and flooding, Morrison felt more alive than he felt since Helen died. He had a purpose, a mission, something bigger than himself. The problem is that feeling is starting to fade. As the adrenaline wears off and exhaustion sets in, Morrison is left with memories that will not leave him alone. The German sailor he saw dead on the deck, the sound of the timer ticking down, the feeling of being underwater in the bilge, knowing he might drown before disarming that last bomb. The look in Dieter Vogel's eyes when Morrison promised he would live. Morrison has nightmares. He wakes up in his bunk gasping, convinced he is still in that flooding submarine. Chen in the bunk above him hears Morrison thrashing and knows to stay quiet. Let the lieutenant work through it alone. On June 19th, Task Group 22.3 enters Port Royal Bay, Bermuda. U-505 is immediately towed to a remote corner of the naval base, hidden behind a warehouse and covered with camouflage netting. Within hours, she is repainted. The German naval ensign is removed and burned. The boat's identification numbers are painted over. She is given a new designation, USS Nemo. Nobody in Latin. The 58 German prisoners, including Dieter Vogel, are transferred under armed guard to a secret camp in Louisiana. The Red Cross is denied access. Their families in Germany receive notifications that they are missing, presumed dead. They will not learn the truth until 1947. While Morrison and his team recover in Bermuda, the Enigma machines and codebooks are already on their way to England. by aircraft heavily guarded marked Top Secret Eyes Only. Destination Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park is the center of Allied code-breaking efforts. Thousands of mathematicians, linguists, and cryptographers work around the clock to decrypt German communications. Alan Turing, a brilliant mathematician who will later be considered the father of computer science, has built machines called bombs to help crack Enigma codes. But even with these machines, reading German U-boat messages remains incredibly difficult. The Germans change their Enigma settings constantly. Different rotor configurations, different key settings. Every day, sometimes every few hours. Unless you know the current settings, the messages are gibberish. That is where Morrison's capture makes all the difference. The code books Morrison's team recovered contains something priceless. The key schedules. These are tables showing which rotors to use, which positions to set them in, and which plugboard connections to make for each day of the month. With these schedules, British cryptographers can set their own Enigma machines to match the German settings. Within a week of receiving the WWII materials, Bletchley Park is reading German U-boat communications across the entire Atlantic. Here is what that means in practical terms. On June 8th, 2 days after D-Day, German Admiral Dönitz sends orders to 15 U-boats proceed to the English Channel and attack the Allied invasion fleet, sink the transport ships, cut off reinforcements and supplies to the beaches. Those orders are transmitted via Enigma. And thanks to U-505's code books, British cryptographers read those orders within an hour. Allied Naval Command immediately redirects destroyer escorts and corvettes to intercept those U-boats. Of the 15 submarines heading for the Channel, 13 are sunk before they reach the invasion fleet. The other 2 are forced to retreat. Not a single Allied transport ship is sunk in the Channel during the first 2 weeks after D-Day. Think about what that means. Each transport ship carries hundreds of American soldiers, young men, 18, 19, 20 years old, heading to reinforce the troops fighting their way through French hedgerows and German fortifications. If even one of those ships had been torpedoed, hundreds would have drowned. But none were. Because 15 U-boats never reached the Channel. Because British cryptographers knew where those submarines were. Because Morrison's team captured the code books. How many American lives did Morrison save? We will never know the exact number, but it could have been thousands. The intelligence from U-505 continues to pay dividends for months. The acoustic homing torpedoes Morrison's team recovered are taken to the Naval Ordnance Laboratory in Washington, D.C. American engineers disassemble them piece by piece, analyzing how they work. These are the Zaunkönig torpedoes, German for wren, that track the propeller noise of Allied ships. Understanding how they work allows the Navy to develop countermeasures. Within 6 weeks, American ships are towing decoys called Foxers, noise-making devices that produce louder cavitation sounds than the ships themselves. German torpedoes chase the decoys instead of the ships. German U-boat commanders notice immediately. Their acoustic torpedoes, which had been devastatingly effective, suddenly miss their targets at alarming rates. They report this to Dönitz. He suspects the Allies have developed some countermeasure, but he never guesses it came from a captured submarine. He assumes the technology was reverse-engineered from a dud torpedo that failed to detonate. And that is why the secrecy is so critical. As long as the Germans believe U-505 sank with all hands, they have no reason to change their codes or their torpedo designs. They keep using the same Enigma settings, the same operational procedures, the same technology. And the Allies keep reading their mail. By December 1944, U-boat losses have become catastrophic. German submarines that once hunted in wolf packs now sail alone, desperate to avoid detection. They spend most of their time submerged, running on batteries surfacing only at night to recharge. Allied hunter-killer groups find them anyway. Aircraft catch them during surface transits. Destroyer escorts depth charge them in mid-ocean. The Battle of the Atlantic. The longest continuous battle of World War II is effectively won. Britain's supply lines are secure. American troops and equipment pour across the Atlantic unhindered. And almost nobody knows that 8 American sailors made it possible. In August 1944, Morrison and his team are summoned to Washington, D.C. for a small, classified awards ceremony. The ceremony takes place in a locked conference room at the Navy Department. No press, no photographs, just Admiral Ernest King, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Fleet, and a handful of senior officers who know the truth about U-505. Task Group 22.3 receives the Presidential Unit Citation for Extraordinary Heroism. Commander Harrington receives the Legion of Merit. Commander Watkins receives the Navy Cross for his critical role in the salvage operation. Without Watkins's engineering expertise and tireless work over those 4 hours, U-505 would have sunk before reaching Bermuda. His contributions saved not just the submarine, but all the intelligence aboard her. Morrison is awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration, for leading the boarding party onto a sinking enemy submarine rigged with explosives. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty." Samuel Chen and Jack Kowalski received the Navy Cross. The other 5 members of Morrison's team received Silver Stars. But here's the thing about that ceremony. Nobody can talk about it. The Medal of Honor is real, but Morrison cannot tell anyone why he earned it. The citation is deliberately vague. Extraordinary heroism during anti-submarine operations. No mention of U-505. Morrison's daughters do not know. His fellow officers aboard Pillsbury do not know. The newspapers do not know. For all intents and purposes, Thomas Morrison receives the Medal of Honor for a mission that never happened. Admiral King takes Morrison aside after the ceremony. "Lieutenant, you did something extraordinary. Something that will save countless American lives. But you can never talk about it. Not to your daughters, not to your friends, not to anyone. This secret needs to hold until Germany surrenders." Can you live with that? Morrison thinks about Sarah and Emma. Thinks about how proud they would be if they knew what their father did. Thinks about all the letters he wanted to write, all the stories he wanted to tell them. "I can live with it, sir. As long as my girls are safe, I can live with it." But living with it turns out to be harder than Morrison expected. Morrison returns to Pillsbury in September 1944. The ship continues anti-submarine patrols through the fall and winter. But the war in the Atlantic has changed. U-boat contacts become rare. The once prolific German submarine fleet is being systematically destroyed. Morrison's team never gets another chance to board an enemy submarine. Never needs to. The missions become routine, boring even. And Morrison finds himself thinking constantly about June 4th, about those 3 minutes in the darkness, about the bombs ticking away, about Dieter Vogel pointing a pistol at Romano, about cutting that last wire underwater with his lungs screaming for air. He is not sleeping well. When he does sleep, he has nightmares. He wakes up convinced he is still in that bilge, still underwater, still running out of time. His hands shake sometimes. Not all the time. Just when things are quiet, when his mind wanders. Chen notices. Bobby Lee notices. They do not say anything. Nobody talks about things like that in 1944. You just push through it. Morrison starts having heart palpitations. His chest tightens for no reason. He feels his heart racing, feels short of breath, feels like he is drowning, even though he is standing on the deck in open air. The ship's doctor wants to send him to sickbay. Morrison refuses. "I am fine. Just tired. It has been a long war." The truth is, Morrison does not know how to be peacetime Morrison anymore. The man who boarded that submarine, who disarmed 13 bombs, who saved that German kid, who made history, that man felt real in a way that regular life does not. Going back to routine patrols, to filling out maintenance reports, to fixing diesel engines that make funny noises, it feels hollow. Like he saw something in that darkness that changed him, and now he cannot fit back into the person he used to be. But he cannot talk about it, cannot explain to anyone what he is feeling, because the mission never officially happened. In May 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe is over. Pillsbury escorts one of the surrendered German U-boats, U-858, to Cape May, New Jersey. Morrison watches the German crew climb onto American soil, hands raised, defeated. He wonders if any of them know about U-505. Wonders if they ever will. With the war over, the Navy begins planning a Medal of Honor ceremony for Morrison. A public one this time. The secrecy can end. America can finally learn what 8 sailors did. The ceremony is scheduled for October 15th, 1945. White House, President Harry Truman will present the medal personally. Morrison's daughters will be there. Finally, after a year of silence, they will learn the truth about what their father did. Morrison receives 2 months of leave. He goes home to Cleveland, sees Sarah and Emma for the first time in over a year. Sarah is 17 now, a senior in high school. Emma is 15. Both have grown up in ways Morrison did not expect. They have become women while he was away. Independent, strong. They lost their mother and survived it. They managed without their father and survived that too. Morrison is proud and a little sad because he missed so much of their lives. Missed Emma's 14th birthday, missed Sarah's junior prom, missed 1,000 small moments that you can never get back. But they have time now. The war is over. Morrison can retire from the Navy, find a civilian job, be a father again. He can take Sarah to visit colleges. He can teach Emma to drive. He can be there for all the moments he missed. Except Morrison's heart has other plans. On September 17th, 1945, 28 days before the Medal of Honor ceremony, Thomas Morrison dies in his sleep. Heart attack, massive. The doctors say it is fast. He does not suffer. He is 43 years old. Sarah finds him in the morning. She goes to wake him for breakfast, knocks on his door, gets no answer, opens the door and finds her father lying peacefully in bed like he is still asleep. Emma calls the Navy. The Navy calls Admiral King. King calls President Truman. The Medal of Honor ceremony goes forward, but instead of pinning the medal on Lieutenant Morrison's uniform, President Truman presents it to Morrison's daughters. October 15th, 1945. White House. Sarah Morrison, 17 years old, stands beside her sister Emma in front of the President of the United States. Both girls wear black dresses. Both have been crying. President Truman reads the citation. The President of the United States takes pride in presenting the Medal of Honor posthumously to Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas Morrison, United States Naval Reserve, for service as set forth in the following citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving aboard USS Pillsbury during action against enemy German forces on June 4, 1944. With utter disregard for his own personal safety, Lieutenant Morrison led a boarding party onto a captured enemy submarine that was sinking and rigged with explosives. Despite extreme hazards, he descended into the submarine, located and disarmed multiple demolition charges, and saved the vessel from destruction. His extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. After the ceremony, Admiral King takes Sarah and Emma aside. He tells them everything. The whole story. June 4th, the U-boat, the 3 minutes, the 13 bombs, Dieter Vogel, the Enigma machines, the impact on D-Day, the thousands of lives their father saved. Sarah listens in silence. When King finishes, she reaches into her purse and pulls out an envelope. Morrison's letter, the one he sealed in his footlocker back in May 1944 before the mission. The Navy found it when they inventoried his belongings. Sarah has already read it. Now she shows Admiral King the final paragraph. Sarah Emma, if you are reading this, it means I did not come home. I am sorry. I wish I could have seen you grow up, seen you graduate, walked you down the aisle. But I need you to know something. Everything I did so you and your sister could have a better future. So you could live in a world where evil men don't win, where courage matters, where Americans keep their promises. I was just a sailor. I fixed engines. I knew pipes and valves. But for 3 minutes on June 4th, I got to be something more. I got to be the man your mother always believed I could be. Be good to each other. Take care of your grandmother. Go to college. Fall in love. Have families. Live full, happy lives. And remember, when things get hard, when life seems impossible, think about what your old man did. 3 minutes. 13 bombs. Darkness and fear. But we did not quit. Americans never quit. I love you both. Always. That letter stays with Sarah Morrison for the rest of her life. She teaches school for 40 years in Cleveland. Every year on June 4th, she brings her students into the classroom early and tells them about her father. About the man who had 3 minutes to change the war. About the team of 8 sailors who did something the Navy had not done in 132 years. About ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things when their country needed them most. She shows them the letter. She shows them the Medal of Honor, which she keeps in a velvet case. And she makes sure they understand what the greatest generation did, what they sacrificed, what they accomplished, and why it matters. In 1954, the submarine her father saved is transported to Chicago and placed on display at the Museum of Science and Industry. It takes engineers 3 months to move the 750-ton vessel from the Atlantic Ocean to Lake Michigan. They float her down the Atlantic coast through the Gulf of Mexico up the Mississippi River system to Chicago. The final leg requires hauling the submarine across city streets on specially designed rollers. Thousands of Chicagoans line the streets to watch U-505 creep past on her journey to immortality. On September 25, 1954, Fleet Admiral William Halsey dedicates U-505 as a permanent war memorial. Sarah and Emma Morrison are there. They walk through the same control room where their father disarmed those bombs. They touch the same valves he closed. They stand in the bilge space where he cut that final wire with seconds to spare. They see the Enigma machines he captured. They read the plaque that honors him and his team, and they weep. In 2004, the museum completes a major renovation. U-505 is moved indoors to a climate-controlled underground exhibit hall. The submarine is preserved exactly as she appeared when Morrison's team captured her. Visitors can walk through every compartment, see where the bombs were placed, touch the valves, stand in the control room, and experience what Morrison experienced. Today, more than 30 million people have visited U-505. More than 30 million people have walked through the submarine that 8 American sailors saved. They see the Enigma machines. They read about Morrison and his team. They learn what happened on June 4, 1944, and hanging on the wall in a glass case beside the submarine is Morrison's Medal of Honor. The Navy has not forgotten either. In 1968, they commission a destroyer escort and name her USS Thomas Morrison, DE-1048. She serves for 22 years patrolling the Atlantic during the Cold War, protecting American ships from Soviet submarines, continuing the mission her namesake started. When she is decommissioned in 1990, her bell is donated to the Museum of Science and Industry and placed beside U-505, a reminder that Morrison's legacy lives on. And what about Dieter Vogel, the German sailor? Morrison saved Dieter spends 2 years in a POW camp in Louisiana. The Americans treat him well. He receives medical care, 3 meals a day, books to read. He learns English. He works in the camp vegetable garden. He thinks about his mother every day. In 1947, when the other U-505 crew members are released and sent home to Germany, Dieter goes with them. He returns to Hamburg and finds his mother's house bombed to rubble. But his mother has survived. She is living with relatives in the countryside, working in their bakery, growing old alone, believing her son is dead. When Dieter walks through the door of that bakery, when his mother sees him standing there in his worn civilian clothes, when she realizes he is real and alive and home, she collapses in his arms, weeping. She thought him dead for 3 years. The German Navy told her he was lost at sea, presumed dead. She had grieved for him, mourned him, accepted that her only son was gone. But he is not gone. He is alive, because an American lieutenant kept his promise. In 1950, Dieter writes a letter to Sarah and Emma Morrison. He has practiced the English for weeks, checking every word in his dictionary. The letter reads, "Dear Sarah and Emma Morrison, my name is Dieter Vogel. I was a sailor on the German submarine U-505. Your father saved my life on June 4, 1944. I was wounded and bleeding in the submarine when the Americans boarded. I pointed my gun at them because I was afraid. But your father did not shoot me. He promised I would see my mother again if I helped him. He kept his promise. Because of him, I lived. I came home. I married a girl from my village. Her name is Anna. We have 2 children now. Klaus is 3 years old. Greta is 1. They will never know war. They will grow up in peace. Because your father showed mercy when he did not have to. I want you to know that your father was a good man, a brave man. The German officers told us that Americans were monsters, but your father showed me that honor and mercy exist even in war. He could have left me to die. He could have shot me. Instead, he saved me. I will tell Klaus and Greta about Thomas Morrison, and they will tell their children, and their children will tell their children. Your father's memory will live in Germany too. He will never be forgotten. I'm sorry he is gone. I'm sorry you lost him. But I want you to know that because of him, I am here. My family is here. We owe him everything. With deepest gratitude and respect, Dieter Vogel, Sarah keeps that letter in the same velvet case as the Medal of Honor. When she teaches her students about her father, she reads them Dieter's letter. She wants them to understand that war is not just about killing enemies. Sometimes it is about seeing the humanity in your enemy, about keeping promises, about choosing mercy when you have every reason to choose vengeance. That is what her father did. And that is what she wants future generations to remember. 3 minutes. That is what it came down to. 3 minutes in the darkness of a sinking submarine with water rising and bombs ticking and every reason to give up. But Thomas Morrison did not give up. Samuel Chen did not give up. Jack Kowalski, Bobby Lee, Robert McDonald, Vincent Romano, Carlos Martinez, Frank O'Brien, none of them gave up. Because that is what Americans do when the moment comes, when history calls, when the impossible is the only option left. We do not give up. For those of you watching who served, whether in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, or any conflict, since you are part of this legacy, the legacy of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, of courage in the face of impossible odds, of keeping promises even when it costs everything. If you have stories to share about the veterans in your life, please leave them in the comments. These stories matter. These memories matter, because as long as we remember what the greatest generation did, their sacrifice will not be forgotten. Today, if you visit the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, you can stand inside U-505. You can touch the same hatches Morrison opened, see the same control panels he studied, walk through the same narrow passages where he crawled through oily water to disarm bombs, stand in the bilge space where he cut that final wire with 3 seconds to spare. And if you are very quiet, if you close your eyes and listen, you can almost hear it. Tick, 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 the sound of a timer counting down, the sound of 3 minutes that changed the world. This is the story the government kept secret for a year, the story that helped win World War II, the story of 8 American sailors who did what the United States Navy had not done in 129 years. They captured an enemy warship at sea, and they never gave up. Thomas Morrison's Medal of Honor is displayed at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago alongside German U-505. His daughters Sarah and Emma both lived into their 80s. They never stopped telling their father's story. Sarah taught thousands of students about courage and sacrifice. Emma worked as a nurse caring for veterans, honoring her father's memory by serving those who served. Commander Henry Watkins continued his distinguished naval career. He received the Navy Cross for his role in saving U-505, recognition of the critical 4 hours he spent keeping the submarine afloat while Morrison's team secured the intelligence. Without Watkins, there would be no U-505 in Chicago today. He retired as a Rear Admiral in 1960 and spent his final years teaching naval engineering at the Academy. He never forgot the submarine he saved. U-505 is the only German submarine captured by American forces during World War II. It remains the most visited museum submarine in the world. Over 30 million people have walked through her compartments, learning what 8 sailors did on June 4, 1944. Dieter Vogel lived until 2003. He was 80 years old when he died peacefully in Hamburg, surrounded by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. A family that exists because Thomas Morrison kept his promise. In his will, Dieter left a letter to be sent to the Morrison family. It said simply, "Thank you for everything. We remember." This story is dedicated to the memory of the greatest generation, the Americans who saved the world. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more forgotten stories of American courage. God bless America, and God bless those who defend her.